And why don't we start it out a little bit with Crimes of the Future, which is, as I was alluding to, the new film from David Cronenberg, the director so singular in his vision of horror and the ways in which the body particularly can be contorted and messed with in ways to elicit horror, that he's had an entire term, Cronenbergian, kind of named after the types of horror movies he's inspired. This one is not that different from what you're expecting when it comes to the Cronenberg type of vision for the world, one in which there's like a casual approach to different forms of body mutilation and reassignment and all sorts of crazy visions of a potential future where, in the case of this society, half the population doesn't feel pain anymore, so surgery is not this big undertaking. It's something that's done casually and on street corners and in back alleys and in all sorts of art shows, particularly the art shows held by Viggo Mortensen's character and Léa Seydoux' character as they perform for captive audiences in the art space, removing organs and all sorts of upsetting imagery. Amanda was talking about Crimes of the Future with us last week on our Weekend Must Watch, and she was saying how even though it has this reputation for being a very disturbing to watch movie, there's discussion of the people who walked out in Cannes. I don't know if it's necessarily like the most horrific vision or thing that I've seen. There's elements of Possessor, the son of David Cronenberg, Brandon Cronenberg, his film, that I found a little bit more difficult to watch, but there is something not so much like horrific in that I can't look at it, but unsettling in that it bothers me a little bit more to my core in terms of the types of horrors that David Cronenberg is displaying. There's this really interesting concept in the movie of the breakfaster, which is this breakfast chair that Viggo Mortensen sits in to digest his meals, that's like made of a human skeletal structure, and it moves around in order to massage his body so that he doesn't experience pain while eating, because his body has evolved past the point where he can comfortably digest human meals, and just sort of the way in which stuff like that hints at a much larger idea, much larger things going on, is really cool. You may have heard about that this is a script that he dusted off after like 20-something years or something, and it's pretty amazing.
Didn't he have a short?
Some of the stuff feels relevant. He did. His second film ever was also called Crimes of the Future, although I don't think it's quite exactly the same territory being covered. It's sort of like, this is sort of an expanded and altered vision, given that he now has, a little bit more capabilities in terms of his production. But it's a really cool thing. I think there's just so much to parse between the lines here, little moments that I wish we had maybe spent a little more time in, but that have stayed in my mind. So I understand why maybe a bunch of people are coming out of this movie with mixed opinions and maybe not super high on it. I'm not exactly saying that this was one of my favorites of the year, but there's a lot there and a lot of really interesting, thought-provoking elements, plus excellent performances. Kristen Stewart is really good in a pretty small role, but I was just blown away by Viggo. He does this thing where he is kind of like choking on some of his words that's more uncomfortable than any of the body horror stuff that they were doing. It was it made me feel like you know that feeling when you just have like too much phlegm in your throat and you can't breathe, right? Like I got that reciprocally from his performance.
Would you recommend it in theaters, or would you say people need to wait to get the virtual?
I mean, I think perhaps it would help to kind of be like enveloped in that world. It moves at a slower pace that I could see maybe if you don't have the best attention or you're not sitting in the theater, that you might not lend yourself to fully experience it in that way.
Okay.
But, it's not necessarily like the best of Cronenberg or the best in art house cinema. So I'm not saying, I don't think it's like a run out to the theaters and see it. If it sounds like it's up your alley, I think it's benefited by seeing it in a theater, but sure. But yeah, I'm sure most people would probably wait to catch this one on streaming.
Sounds good. How was Stewart in it?
I like Stewart a lot. Like I was sort of saying, it's a smaller performance, and I think some people might mistake what she's doing for being like bad acting because it's very mannered and because it's kind of big. But I really dig how quirky and nuanced it is. She has a particular vision of her character that I think builds the kind of unsettling idea of this world. Like the way that she interacts with other people is not, it's not of our present time and space, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Final one. Is it better than Titan?
For me, I would say yeah, but like I was not the biggest Titan fan.
You did hate Titan, yeah. You did.
I think Raw is better than both those movies,
easily,
but
yeah. I'm opposite.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know, man.
I'll be sure to catch it.
Yeah, Devesh asked if I'd agree with Amanda's opinion that Possessor is better. I actually think that Crimes of the Future might be a little better. I like Possessor a lot. I don't know. There's a lot going on in Crimes of the Future.
Nah, Possessor's good. I know I'm talking out of not seeing Crimes yet. Possessor's great, dude. Junior knew what he was doing there. He paid attention.
No disrespect to Brandon Cronenberg, who is apparently hard at work at a new movie, and I'm very excited for that one too. I also was listening to interviews with David, and his daughter is working on her first movie, so they got a whole family of unsettling filmmakers out there.
Sounds good.
Yeah.